There are turning points in life that don't begin with noise, crisis, or chaos. They begin quietly, often in moments when everything around you seems ordinary. Yet something inside you begins to shift. You start noticing details you once ignored. You begin sensing the intentions behind people's words. You catch subtle patterns in behavior, the tone someone uses, the timing of their reactions, the way they show up or disappear, depending on what they want. It isn't paranoia, it's awareness. It's the awakening of perception, the sharpening of the inner lens that helps you move through the world with clarity instead of confusion. The Stoics understood this feeling well. They believed that wisdom begins not with answers, but with the courage to see things as they really are, not as we hope they are, not as we fear they might be, but as they truly appear through steady observation and calm reflection. Life becomes much easier and much harder when you finally allow yourself to see truth without distortion. Easier because clarity removes guesswork. Harder because clarity often reveals things we preferred not to acknowledge. You may begin to notice that not everyone around you is moving with honesty, empathy, or respect. Some people drift through life unaware of the impact of their behavior. Others know exactly what they're doing, and many fall somewhere between inconsistent, unpredictable, shifting their intentions depending on what benefits them most in the moment. Recognizing this isn't meant to make you cynical, it's meant to make you free, because the moment you begin to understand human nature, the moment you stop taking everything personally, the moment you see patterns for what they are instead of what you wish they were, that is the moment you regain control of your peace. The Stoics believed that our greatest responsibility is not to manage others, but to manage ourselves, to protect our inner world with clarity, reason, and thoughtful boundaries. Your mind, your emotional stability, your sense of direction, these are sacred and nothing deserves to be allowed into them carelessly. But awareness requires balance. It's not about suspicion. It's not about overanalyzing every interaction. It's about noticing the evidence in front of you and trusting your inner reasoning. As Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, look things in the face as they are, not tinted by desire, not colored by fear. Today, we begin a long, steady journey into understanding the kinds of behavior that quietly drain your energy, disturb your peace, or distract you from your values. This is not about judging people harshly. This is not about labeling others as bad. It's about learning the signs that signal misalignment, the signs that someone's presence in your life may require distance, boundaries, or deeper clarity. You may have encountered people who seemed wonderful at first glance, friendly, warm, approachable, the kind of personalities that effortlessly draw others in. But with time, you notice shifts, patterns that didn't quite fit, words that didn't match actions, moments where you suddenly felt confused, dismissed, or strangely guilty without reason. These shifts matter, your intuition matters, and your peace matters more than any obligation to maintain relationships that constantly leave you drained or uncertain. Before we begin exploring these deeper signs and insights, let me remind you of something essential. You are allowed to prioritize your well-being. You are allowed to walk away from instability. You are allowed to choose clarity over comfort, even when it feels unfamiliar or difficult. You are allowed to build a life around people who move with sincerity, respect, consistency, and empathy. Most importantly, you are allowed to protect the direction of your life, because no one else will do that for you. The Stoics taught that the only things truly within our control are our judgments, our actions, and our responses. You cannot control how others choose to behave. You cannot rewrite their choices, intentions, or personality, but you can choose how much access you allow them to have. You can choose how deeply their behavior affects your inner world, and you can choose the path that leads you toward peace instead of toward confusion. As we begin this journey together, remember this: awareness is not meant to make you fearful. It is meant to make you wise. It is meant to help you navigate life with steadiness rather than guessing. It is meant to protect you from patterns that would otherwise drain your strength slowly over time, without you even realizing why. So take a breath, settle your mind, and let's step into the first layer of clarity, understanding the subtle signs behind the charm, the behavior and the intentions that shape the way people move through your life. Not with anger, not with judgment, but with calm, grounded observation. Let us begin. In part 2, the mask of charm. There is a particular kind of person you meet in life who shines brightly at first. They speak with ease. They smile at all the right moments. They make you feel seen, valued, appreciated, sometimes more in a few hours than others have made you feel in years. Their presence feels warm, comforting, almost magnetic. You find yourself relaxing around them, lowering your guard without even realizing it. They read people well. They know how to listen just enough, how to tell a story with perfect timing, how to insert a joke at the precise moment your attention would otherwise drift. These people are often intelligent, witty, socially fluent, and this makes their presence feel special, even rare. But here is the truth the Stoics understood long before modern psychology confirmed it. Charm is not character. Charm is a performance. Character is a pattern. Charm can be learned. Charm can be used. Charm can be switched on and off depending on the situation or the audience. Character, however, does not change under pressure. It does not fade when attention shifts. It does not falter when inconvenience appears. This is where the difference becomes clear. The person who dazzled you at first may begin to reveal subtle inconsistencies, small behaviors that don't match the image they project so effortlessly. Perhaps they always need to be at the center of attention. Perhaps conversations somehow drift back to their stories, their accomplishments, their frustrations. Perhaps they are enthusiastic when you praise them, but noticeably quiet when the topic isn't about them. These are not monumental red flags. They are quiet ones, and quiet signs often matter more than the loud ones. The Stoics taught something profoundly simple. To understand a person, observe how they behave in small moments, not in public. Not during the first impression, not when everything is going their way, but in the small moments, the subtle interactions that reveal who they truly are. For example, do they listen when the spotlight isn't on them? Do they express gratitude when someone else helps them? Do they show patience when someone else speaks slowly or struggles to explain themselves? Do they treat others with the same warmth they show you? Charm often disappears the moment someone is no longer the focus. It is a conditional warmth. You may notice that when they are not getting attention, they interrupt. When they tell a story, they embellish, exaggerate, or dramatize in small ways to enhance their persona. When someone else succeeds, they respond with subtle indifference. When someone else struggles, their empathy is shallow or fleeting. Over time, this begins to feel off, not alarming, just slightly misaligned. Your intuition whispers that something doesn't match. This feeling matters. It is your mind recognizing inconsistency. It is your inner wisdom, noticing contradictions between what a person says and what they actually do. The Stoics taught that clarity arises from observing without emotional attachment. To see clearly is to remove desire from perception. When you begin liking someone's personality, your desire can cloud your clarity. You may excuse small slips, overlook little inconsistencies, or rationalize their behaviors as quirks, but clarity means stepping back and asking, what pattern do their behaviors form over time? Because charm can be momentary, but patterns reveal the foundation. The person who uses charm as a tool often begins to show a quiet hunger for admiration. They thrive in situations where they can impress others. They enjoy being praised, being seen, being recognized, yet they give very little of that energy back. In groups, they subtly steer conversations back to themselves. When others talk, they wait to speak instead of genuinely listening. When someone else shares an accomplishment, they respond with a comment that shifts focus back to their own experiences. Their humor may carry a tiny edge. A gentle jab here, a small tease there. Nothing sharp enough to seem harmful, but enough to make others cautious. Over time, these subtle behaviors create an invisible imbalance in interactions. You may leave conversations feeling strangely drained without understanding why. This is not your imagination. Some people draw energy from being admired, validated, or emotionally fed by others. It is not always malicious, but it is not healthy either. The charm that once felt warm now feels heavy. You begin to sense that their kindness appears when convenient, but disappears when not. You may notice that their empathy is selective, their patience conditional, their interest inconsistent. This is often the first sign of misalignment. Charm should add ease, not confusion. It should create comfort, not pressure. It should feel stable, not shifting. The Stoics believed that genuine character reveals itself through steadiness. They valued people who remained consistent in mood, in intention, in treatment of others. Even when situations change, someone who is kind only when it benefits them is not practicing kindness. They are practicing strategy. Someone who listens only so they can speak again is not listening. They are waiting. Someone who treats people differently depending on their perceived usefulness is not being genuine. They are managing impressions, and someone who flatters you intensely in the beginning may be setting the stage for a deeper imbalance later. As you develop emotional clarity, you begin to understand something essential. Not every smile is sincerity. Not every compliment is respect. Not every enthusiastic greeting reflects genuine intention. Genuine people are consistent. They are steady. Their energy does not fluctuate based on convenience. Their warmth does not disappear behind closed doors. Their interest does not fade once they've gained what they wanted. The mask of charm is beautiful, but it is also thin. Time exposes what lies beneath, always. When you recognize these early signs, don't respond with fear or harsh judgment. Respond with awareness, observe, stay calm, and give yourself permission to create distance if the pattern continues. The Stoics taught that peace is found not in controlling others, but in understanding them. Once you understand the difference between charm and character, you begin to move through the world with a quiet confidence, trusting not the performance of a moment, but the truth revealed through consistent behavior. This clarity is your protection, your steadiness, your freedom, and it prepares you for the next layer of awareness, recognizing when someone's emotional world is not capable of meeting your own. That is where we walk next. Part 3, the absence of empathy. Empathy is one of the most powerful qualities a human being can possess. It is the quiet ability to understand another person's emotional world without needing to feel it exactly as they do. It is the capacity to pause, listen, acknowledge, and respect the feelings that live inside someone else's experience. Empathy doesn't require dramatic displays of compassion. It doesn't require emotional intensity. It doesn't require grand gestures or poetic words. Often, empathy is simply presence, a moment of stillness where someone truly listens, truly pays attention, truly recognizes that your inner life matters. But not everyone moves through the world with this capacity. Some people, for reasons rooted in their upbringing, worldview, emotional habits, or personal struggles, simply do not feel or express empathy in a meaningful way. And at first, this absence can be difficult to recognize, because people lacking empathy often compensate with friendliness, confidence, or charm. They can be charismatic, entertaining, or socially skilled. They can appear observant and thoughtful at the surface. But when real emotion enters the space, something feels missing. You might share something personal, something meaningful, something emotionally vulnerable, and receive a response that feels strangely hollow, not cruel, just empty, not hostile, just disconnected. Not offensive, just absent. It can feel like speaking into a space where your words land, but don't echo back. And the Stoics would tell you, this moment is important. This moment is information. This moment is the beginning of clarity. Emotional absence is not always a deliberate choice. Some people simply lack the capacity or practice to engage with others emotionally. But regardless of the reason, the impact on you remains the same. You begin to notice small moments that reveal their lack of empathy. When you express excitement, they change the subject. When you speak about your challenges, they minimize or brush it aside. When you succeed, they offer no genuine celebration. When you struggle, they appear unaffected, almost impatient. It doesn't feel personal, yet somehow it affects you personally. Because your emotions are not being mirrored. Your inner world is not being acknowledged. Your experience in their presence feels like it has no weight. The Stoics taught that every person exists within their own sphere of understanding. Some have a wide emotional horizon. They can sense the needs of others, connect deeply, and offer compassionate presence. Others remain in a narrow emotional space, focused primarily on their own thoughts, comfort, and needs. This does not make them inherently bad, but it does make them incompatible with your emotional well-being. A person who lacks empathy will often show it in consistent ways. They interrupt frequently. They overlook how their choices affect you. They show impatience when others struggle. They avoid emotional topics entirely. They rarely say thank you or acknowledge effort. They fail to apologize with sincerity. They respond to vulnerability with discomfort, humor, or dismissal. These are not signs of cruelty. They're signs of emotional disconnect. An emotional disconnect, when you rely on someone for support or closeness, becomes a form of quiet pain, not because they harm you directly, but because they leave you feeling emotionally alone even when you are physically with them. You may find yourself thinking, why do I feel unheard? Why do I leave conversations feeling invisible? Why do they only care when the topic is themselves? Why do my feelings seem to bounce off them? Why do I feel lonely around someone who is supposed to care? These questions matter. They reveal the subtle discomfort that grows in the presence of emotional distance. You may begin doubting yourself. Am I asking for too much? Am I being too sensitive? Do I expect too much from people? But the Stoics would remind you, there is nothing excessive about wanting to be treated with understanding. There is nothing unreasonable about desiring emotional recognition. There is nothing too sensitive about expecting respect for your inner world. Empathy is one of the most natural human qualities. Its absence is what's unusual, not your desire for its presence. The danger of staying close to someone without empathy is not dramatic. It's subtle, gradual, quiet. The danger is emotional erosion. Over time, you may lose parts of yourself. Your confidence fades because your feelings go unacknowledged. Your joy feels muted because no one shares it with you. Your sadness becomes heavier because no one helps you carry it. Your energy drains because emotional labor becomes one-sided. You begin to shrink yourself to fit their emotional limitations. This is not strength. It is self-abandonment. The Stoics believed deeply in respecting the nature of things, and the nature of a relationship without empathy is imbalance, not because anyone intends harm, but because connection cannot grow when only one person is capable of emotional presence. If you express your feelings and someone responds with defensiveness, detachment, or indifference, it is not your job to teach them how to care. It is not your job to reshape their emotional world. It is not your job to earn the empathy they cannot give. Your only responsibility is to yourself, to honor your needs, to protect your inner peace, and to choose relationships that reflect your emotional values. When the Stoics spoke of self-control, they were also speaking of self-protection. Not through isolation, but through discernment. Discern who is capable of understanding you. Discern who shows care without being asked. Discern who listens, not out of obligation, but out of genuine interest. Discern who makes space for your feelings, not just their own. The absence of empathy is not always dramatic, but it is always meaningful. And your emotional world deserves to be met with presence, not absence. This is the beginning of deeper clarity, understanding the emotional patterns that shape your relationships, and learning to protect your inner life with wisdom. This clarity leads us to the next layer, the subtle behaviors that arise when someone seeks influence or control, the quiet beginnings of manipulation, and that is where we go next. Part 4. The quiet weight of manipulation. Manipulation rarely begins loudly. It rarely starts with obvious deception or dramatic behavior. Instead, it grows quietly, subtly, and slowly in the small spaces between words, in the shifting tone of conversations, in the emotional weight you begin to feel without understanding why. Most people imagine manipulation as something aggressive or forceful, but the truth is far more understated. Manipulation often looks like a pattern of small adjustments meant to steer your emotions, influence your decisions, or keep you uncertain enough that someone else maintains a sense of advantage. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed that all confusion in the mind comes from unclear perception, and manipulation thrives in confusion. It thrives when your clarity becomes cloudy, when your instincts begin to doubt themselves, when your internal compass starts to wobble. At first, manipulation can look like simple inconsistency. Someone says one thing today and the opposite tomorrow. They shift their attitudes depending on who is watching, or what they need, or how they want to be perceived. Their words bend to the moment, not to truth. You might notice small moments where you feel misaligned, moments where someone says something that doesn't quite fit the reality you observed, moments where simple questions are met with strangely complicated answers, moments where your feelings suddenly feel difficult to express, as if the emotional space around you has become tighter and more difficult to move through. None of this is dramatic. All of it is subtle, but subtlety does not mean harmless. It simply means it's harder to recognize. Manipulation often begins with small distortions. Imagine you mention something someone said earlier, and they respond with, "I never said that," even though you remember it clearly. Or perhaps they tell a story that protects them from responsibility, even though the details shift every time. Or maybe they recall an event in a way that benefits them, even if parts of it don't make sense. These are not catastrophic lies. They are small rewrites of reality, and small rewrites of reality accumulate. The Stoics believed that truth is stable and self-consistent. Manipulation relies on instability, on creating subtle imbalances between what you know and what someone wants you to believe. When you start questioning your own memory, your own perception, or your own instincts, you become easier to influence, not because you are weak, but because uncertainty opens the door for someone else's version of events to replace your own. This is why manipulation is so quiet. It requires space created by doubt, confusion, or emotional fog. But here is something important to understand. Manipulation is not always intentional. Some people develop these patterns because they are uncomfortable with responsibility. Some use emotional influence because they haven't learned healthy communication. Some exaggerate or redirect because it gives them a sense of control they otherwise lack. It may not be malicious, but the effect is still the same. You begin to lose trust in your own clarity. One of the first warning signs is emotional imbalance. Moments where you feel guilty for things you didn't do, responsible for feelings you didn't cause, or pressured to fix problems that were never yours. You might find yourself apologizing often, even when you don't fully understand what you're apologizing for. Or you might begin to filter your words carefully, not because you are being thoughtful, but because you're wary of how someone might interpret your honesty. Manipulation often hides inside emotional reactions. Someone may suddenly become distant when they don't get their way, or unusually warm when they want something. Their emotional shifts become tools, signals meant to influence how you behave, even if no words are spoken. The Stoics taught that your inner peace should never depend on someone else's emotional weather. Your stability belongs to you. Your clarity belongs to you. Your choices belong to you. Another subtle sign of manipulation is when someone uses confusion as a shield. You try to discuss an issue plainly, but the conversation tangles instantly, as if an invisible fog appears. Facts become vague. Feelings become distorted. The conversation circles around without resolution, not because the topic is complex, but because clarity would remove the influence they have. When clarity is avoided repeatedly, it is not accidental. It is relational gravity pulling you off balance. You might also notice that the conversation often lands on you, your mistakes, your tone, your reactions, your timing, even when the issue began somewhere else. This shift doesn't need to be forceful. It can be gentle. It can sound like concern. It can sound like disappointment. It can sound like curiosity, but the effect is the same. You become the focal point of problems that did not start with you. This is why manipulation is so difficult to recognize at first. Because it does not always look like control. It looks like rewriting, redirecting, reframing. It looks like selective memory, like shifting narratives, like emotional unpredictability, like imbalance disguised as communication, like responsibility placed on you when it does not belong to you. But once you see it, once the patterns become clear, you can no longer unsee them. And clarity becomes your protection. The Stoics believed that truth is seen through repeated observation. Watch someone's patterns. Watch how they respond when you express your needs. Watch how they behave when you set a gentle boundary. Watch how they react when the conversation requires honesty. Watch how they act when there is no benefit to them. This is where truth appears, not in the warmth of their best moments, but in the consistency of their everyday behavior. Remember this: people who move with sincerity do not need manipulation. They communicate plainly. They acknowledge mistakes. They listen without turning the conversation into a battlefield. They resolve conflict with care, not confusion. They respect the balance between their needs and yours. Manipulation, on the other hand, creates an emotional imbalance that slowly pulls you off center. The goal is not to label others harshly, but to recognize the emotional patterns that drain you. Because once you recognize them, you can adjust. You can create distance. You can set boundaries. You can choose clarity over confusion. And that choice leads us to the next form of imbalance, not subtle, not emotional, but structural. The patterns of control disguised as guidance, protection or care. That is the next step on our journey. Part 5, Control and Dishonesty. Control does not always arrive as aggression. Often, it appears in subtle, almost gentle forms, disguised as concern, framed as guidance, or wrapped in the language of helping you make better choices. At first, it might even feel comforting. Someone who wants to be involved, someone who has opinions, someone who shows strong interest in your decisions. But gradually, slowly, you begin to notice a shift. Their preferences quietly replace yours. The Stoics warned about this kind of influence, not because people are always malicious, but because unchecked influence erodes autonomy. Your life becomes shaped not by your own principles, but by someone else's expectations. Control can begin with small comments. I don't think you should spend time with them. You shouldn't wear that. It doesn't suit you. I know what's best, trust me. None of these statements sound harmful alone, but over time, they form a pattern. Your choices shrink, your voice softens, and your confidence begins to rely on their approval. This imbalance creates a quiet tension inside you. You may find yourself second-guessing your decisions, worrying about disappointing them, or filtering your words to avoid conflict. This is how control grows, not through force, but through influence that slowly becomes direction, then expectation, then unspoken pressure. The Stoics believed that personal freedom begins with inner freedom, the ability to think clearly, choose intentionally, and act according to your values. Anything that clouds your judgment or ties your peace to someone else's reaction becomes a threat to that freedom. Dishonesty magnifies this threat because control and dishonesty often move together. Dishonesty doesn't always look like bold, deliberate lies. It can be the small distortions someone uses to protect their image, the details they conveniently change, the stories they retell with themselves always in the best light, the moments where their version of events doesn't quite match what you lived yourself. You may feel confused, not because the truth is complex, but because someone has subtly shifted it, and confusion is the perfect environment for influence. When truth becomes flexible, when facts feel uncertain, when stories change depending on the moment, you lose the stability needed to trust your own judgment. This is where the Stoics would urge you to stay grounded in observation, to trust consistency, not performance, behavior, not excuses. A person acting with integrity remains steady even when it's uncomfortable. They admit mistakes. They clarify misunderstandings. They speak plainly. Their honesty does not change with convenience. A person dependent on control or impression management does the opposite. They avoid accountability. They shift blame subtly. They reshape moments to appear faultless, not necessarily to harm you, but to protect their own sense of certainty. This combination, control wrapped in care and dishonesty wrapped in logic, creates a slow erosion of trust. You may not notice the change immediately, but you feel it. A quiet unease, a hesitation to share openly, a sense that the emotional landscape beneath you is unstable. The Stoics would tell you, when trust becomes conditional, when clarity is replaced by confusion, when your choices feel influenced rather than respected, this is a sign to step back, not with anger but with awareness, because a healthy relationship, in any form, does not require shrinking your voice, sacrificing your truth, or molding yourself to avoid someone else's reactions. Control restricts. Honesty liberates. When someone values your autonomy, you feel it in the space they give you, space to think, choose, express, grow, space to be yourself without fear of disappointing them. Space where truth can exist without distortion. This clarity leads us to the final step, how to protect yourself with boundaries that honor your inner peace and guide your life back toward freedom. Steadiness and self-respect. Part 6, Boundaries and the Return to Inner Peace. There comes a moment in every journey of self-awareness when the path forward becomes unmistakably clear. Not because the situation becomes easier, but because you become clearer within it. You begin to understand that peace is not something given by others. It is something protected by you. This is where boundaries enter the picture. Not as walls, not as punishment, not as emotional distance, but as the simple recognition of what nurtures your well-being and what consistently disrupts it. A boundary is not a confrontation. It is a compass. It points you back toward your values. It reminds you of who you are when no one else is pulling you off center. The Stoics believe deeply in the idea that inner tranquility requires external clarity. When your environment becomes chaotic, when relationships pull you into confusion, when someone's behavior makes you doubt yourself, it becomes your responsibility to protect the steadiness within. A boundary can sound like, I need more space around this topic. I can't continue a conversation when it becomes disrespectful. I prefer to make this decision myself. I won't engage in discussions that confuse or invalidate my feelings. Simple, calm, grounded, not emotional, intentional. Setting a boundary does not require anger. In fact, the more calm you are, the stronger the boundary becomes. Because boundaries are not about controlling someone else's behavior. They are about guiding your own. You cannot change how another person chooses to act, but you can choose how close you stand to the effects of their choices. You can choose the distance that protects your peace. You can choose the clarity that keeps you steady. Sometimes a boundary will be met with respect. Other times, it may be met with discomfort, denial, or resistance. This reaction is information, a reflection not of your worth, but of the other person's relationship with responsibility. Healthy people respect boundaries because they understand the importance of balance. Unhealthy patterns resist boundaries because they disrupt the influence or certainty they've grown accustomed to. But the Stoics remind us, you are not responsible for someone else's reaction. You are responsible only for the integrity of your actions. And protecting your peace is an act of integrity. You deserve relationships that feel steady, clear, and consistent. You deserve conversations that respect your voice. You deserve connections that honor your boundaries, not challenge them. You deserve emotional environments where you do not have to shrink, adjust, or apologize for simply being yourself. This is not entitlement. This is self-respect. When you choose clarity over confusion, you return to yourself. When you choose boundaries over imbalance, you reclaim the direction of your life. And when you choose peace over dysfunction, you step back into alignment with your values, the very place the Stoics believed all strength begins. So take a breath. Stand tall within yourself. Move forward not with fear, but with calm certainty. You are allowed to protect your mind. You are allowed to guard your emotions. You are allowed to choose steadiness, truth, and harmony. And you are allowed to walk away from anything that consistently pulls you out of alignment. Your life is shaped by the choices you make every day. Choose the ones that bring you closer to peace, closer to clarity, closer to the quiet strength that has always been inside you. Stay grounded, stay mindful, stay true to who you are becoming.